Hi! When we hear the word carbohydrates, we may think of pasta, breads and cookies. But fruits, veggies and dairy are also sources of carbohydrates. In general, we need to know that carbohydrates are the body's preferred source of energy, and they generally make up the largest percentage in our diets. But first, let's understand in a few simple words on how our body works. Our body is made out of cells. Many different types of cells make up the body's tissues, which then make up the body's organs, which then make up the body's organ systems. Organ systems work together to help the body function and maintain what we call homeostasis, the body state of equilibrium, the body's balance, in other words. This requires fuel, which we get from our diets. The digestive system is one of the main systems that turns food into fuel. It breaks down the food we eat into nutrients that provide energy and make the body function. This brings us to macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients are the nutrients we need in large amounts, and micronutrients those we need in smaller amounts. There are three types of macronutrients: carbohydrates, proteins and fats. Today, I will speak about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are often seen negatively in the media and many popular diets, but the truth is that all carbohydrates are not equal. The right carbohydrates in our diet give us usable energy, facilitate healthy digestion, and help support a healthy weight. Too many refined carbohydrates, on the other hand, increase our risk for chronic inflammation, obesity, and type 2 diabetes. I will explain later what are refined carbohydrates. So, how do we know which carbohydrates to choose? The main function of carbohydrates is to provide us with energy. There are two types of simple carbohydrates: monosaccharides and disaccharides. Monosaccharides are the simplest carbohydrates, called simple sugars, and it means that they can't break down any further, and they include glucose, fructose, galactose. Disaccharides are made of two monosaccharides. For example, lactose is made of glucose and galactose. Basically, if you read the nutrition label, if you see an ingredient ending in O's, it probably means that there is a form of sugar. Sources of simple carbohydrates include glucose, sugar, dairy, fruit and honey, malt sugar. As a source of simple carbohydrates, fruit naturally contains sugar, but it is also a good source of fiber. Because of this, fruit doesn't cause a sharp spike in blood glucose levels. In addition, fruit offers much more than just energy. It's also a good source of antioxidants, vitamins and minerals. As such, it is obviously a very good source of carbohydrates. Let's move to complex carbohydrates. Because they are larger than simple carbohydrates, they require more time to break down. So digestion and absorption are slowed down. This prevents extreme changes in our blood glucose levels. Sources of complex carbohydrates include whole grains, brown rice, oats, whole meat, barley, and others, beans, legumes, vegetables. Complex carbohydrates contain fiber. Fiber supports gut health, helps us manage our weight, reduces cholesterol, and helps cardiovascular health. At the same time, carbs can have a positive effect on your mood, thinking, mental health, and energy. All carbohydrates are eventually broken down into glucose to be absorbed and used for energy readily or to be stored for when energy is needed. Foods that are high in simple carbohydrates, like sugar, cause our blood glucose to increase rapidly. Over time, these rapid spikes become very taxing on our system. Our ability to effectively manage blood sugar decreases, and we become less able to produce sufficient amount of insulin, the hormone that helps manage our blood glucose levels. The insulin that is produced is less effective. we risk decreased insulin sensitivity and even type 2 diabetes. The recommended daily allowance for carbohydrates is 45% to 65% of our total calories. Depending on your body's needs, any unused glucose is stored in the liver or converted to fat. The majority of carbohydrates in a healthy diet should come from whole foods, and intake of refined grains and added sugar should be limited. As with everything, we have to consider bioindividuality and keep our body and lifestyle in mind as we explore carbohydrates. What are refined carbohydrates? Refined carbohydrates are whole grains where the main nutritional part of the grain is removed in order to increase shelf life. This is typically what happens during the processing of packaged foods. So this means that the grain no longer contains the fiber that slows down digestion and absorption. Because of this, consuming too many refined grains like white flour, white pasta will cause blood glucose to increase quickly and lead to obesity, type 2 diabetes, dysregulation of blood sugar, and chronic inflammation and diseases. There have been many different dietary trends concerning carbohydrates. Many different low-carb or high-carb diets have been advised throughout the years. In general, there are types of carbohydrates to be aware of, but swearing off carbohydrates entirely may actually lead to a decrease in dietary quality. So remember, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes are all good sources of carbohydrates. High carbohydrate diets may not be right for everyone, but exploring nutritious whole grains is a great way to add some variety to your weekday meals and experiment with how carbohydrates fit into your diet. The right carbohydrates in our diet give us usable energy, facilitate healthy digestion, and help support a healthy weight. Hope you find this information useful, and I'm looking forward to discussing further with you on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or on my website, isabellerazis.com.